Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. FPL Consult here, and in today's video I'm going to share with you guys the 5 best drafts that you have sent me, and we're going to use these drafts to kind of discuss how going for, let's say, a Salah only draft or a Haaland only draft or a Salah and Haaland draft is going to cause your squad balance to look like. We'll discuss some of the picks, and I'll also share some variations of these drafts that I think are possible as to kind of tweaking the structure and picks that you go for. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you do, please drop a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. So we're gonna start off this video with the Salah only draft. Now it is a popular draft. I mean, single premium drafts in general I feel are the best way to kind of optimize your team, because simply going for Salah and Haaland will cause your squad structures to look quite unbalanced. So I will touch on that later on when we take a look at the Salah and Haaland drafts. But looking at this Salah only draft here, we see that he has gone for 4.5 million keepers. So firstly, not really necessary. I think you could choose to spend your money elsewhere. I will probably downgrade the bench keeper to 4.0 million and then keep either one of Miguel or Henderson. In terms of the overall squad structure here, what going for Salah only has enabled this draft to do is go for a very strong midfield, where you take a look at the midfield, there's Salah, Nkunku, Saka, Eze and Bailey. So already 2 6.5 million midfielders, 1 7.0 million in Eze, and then Saka at 10 million, followed by your premium in Salah. So up front, you also have the money to go for Havertz, Isak and Muniz, so an 8 million, an 8.5 million and a 6 million forward. So a lot of money to spread around. And when you take a look at the defense as well, it is pretty much a standard defense in Trent, Vardiol and a 4.5 in Mykolenko. The other two defenders on the bench there are 4.0 million. So if I kind of analyze this squad on a whole, I think the defense is very strong. You have 2 premiums and you have a 4.5, so you have that 4.5 million price point to kind of move around if you want to, let's say, go for Burn down the line, or even Konza, let's say, when Aston Villa's fixtures turn from game week 3 onwards after the Arsenal game, right? So lots of flexibility there in defense, especially if you want to downgrade Trent to, let's say, a Saliba, also possible. Vardiol to Saliba, also possible. In midfield, you hit the different price points with Salah as your premium. Saka can be switched after the game week 3 game against Brighton at home, where from game week 4 onwards, Arsenal's fixtures start to get tougher. You can switch around from Saka to Son, etc. So you have that price point as well. And your midfield in general is a very strong midfield, because there's Eze, Nkunku and Bailey as well. So really strong squad. And up front, I don't feel you're compromising too much again. Maybe you don't have Watkins, but this draft has Bailey. That's kind of why I've picked it as well, to kind of cover the Aston Villa attack. And obviously there's no Haaland. So I do like this draft, and I think personally this is probably my favorite Salah only draft. If I'm not going for Haaland, I would definitely have Salah, and thereafter I would kind of double up on the Arsenal attack, just like how this draft has gone with Saka and Havertz. I think there are gains to be made there. So the only kind of maybe consideration that some people would have is maybe you could go for Son instead of Saka, so that you also cover the Spurs attack there, and then Havertz helps you to cover the Arsenal attack. But in general, after that, I think this draft would hit all the major kind of teams that you want to target. There's Newcastle in there, there's Chelsea, there's Crystal Palace, there's Arsenal. If you have Son in there instead of Saka, there's Tottenham as well. There's Fulham as your enabler, and Salah to cover the good Liverpool fixture. So very, very nice draft. Again, the only downside here is no Haaland. So let's now take a look at a Haaland only draft. So next up, we have a Haaland only draft. So let's break it down. 4.5 million keeper in Jorgensen, 4.0 million keeper on the bench in Vladimirson. I think both of these keepers are fine. The 4.5 and 4.0 structure is okay. In terms of the defense, there's Vardiol and Trent, similar. And then there is Barco as well. Your next 2 defenders on the bench here are Mykolenko and Robinson. So obviously here, I think there's a bit of rotation that this draft is planning by Brad. And generally, I think maybe going for 4.5 million might be a bit of an overkill, but there is excess budget here. In terms of the midfielders that this draft has gone for, similar picks in terms of Gordon, Eze and Nkunku. Bailey is also in this draft, and there is Son there in place of Salah. So obviously, if you want to kind of go for Haaland, and you still want to keep players like Vardiol, like Trent, like Eze, Gordon in your midfield. Something has to give. So the budget here has come from downgrading Salah in midfield to Son, who I think is going to start the season off quite explosively as well. I mean, I look at the fixtures, there's every chance that Son could do very, very well. He is looking like he's going to be starting towards the left, on the left wing, and there's mixed opinions about that. Some people think he is better on the left, some people think he's better playing through the middle, being less involved but getting better chances. So I think for me at this point in time, it's still a little bit of uncertainty as to where he plays, but regardless, I still think like he is a great asset, and not to mention on penalties for Spurs as well, right? So they have a good bunch of fixtures. With Son, I think it's important for you to consider when the fixtures get bad for Spurs, and they do have a number of tough fixtures in the first 6 game weeks, so that kind of rotation needs to come into mind as well. And then up front you have Haaland and Isak. Your last forward there is Stewart. So I think the compromise that this draft has gone for is a 4.5 million striker there, the forward, which is last on the bench. I mean, in general, you wouldn't want to be starting this 4.5 million spot very often. So actually what I would have done potentially is maybe downgrade either one of Mikalenko or Robinson to Harut Bellis, so that would give a extra 0.5 there. And also, on top of that, I try to find funds in midfield. Let's say going for another 6.5 million midfielder by downgrading Eze, so that total I get 1 million to upgrade Stewart to someone like a João Pedro or something. I think on the balance, when I compare those moves, I probably prefer that. But what this draft has kind of gone for is just loading all the money into the starting 11, keeping the defensive options very strong there. So I think in general, when you're thinking about captaincy from game week 2 to game week 4, yes, Salah is a great captaincy option for majority of those weeks as well, except for the week that he plays Manchester United. But aside from that, I think he could very well match Haaland as a captaincy option. So going without Salah here could be a bit dangerous, but the thinking behind this draft is, as with the Salah only draft as well, is that your hope is that your draft on a whole, the players that you've gone for, which are incrementally better than what you would have if you actually had both of them, for example, and you have to downgrade elsewhere, that kind of overall quality improvement of the players will kind of contribute to more points overall, and thereafter you kind of balance out the score. So it's kind of a thinking about trying to optimize the whole squad. I do like the balance of this team. It's just about that 4.5 million striker spot that I think maybe I would try to make it a playable player. Kind of hitting the price points is pretty important as well. For example, a 4.5 million forward is nowhere near as good value as a 4.5 million defender. So choosing where to spend that 4.5 million is crucial as well. So there we go with the Haaland only draft. Let's take a look at the Salah and Haaland draft for those of you guys wanting to start with 2 premiums. So for those of you wanting to start with Salah and Haaland, I've picked out 2 of the best drafts that I feel. One of it is slightly more template, another one is slightly more versatile in terms of the picks that you've gone for, but there are also compromises there. So let's take a look at the one that's closest to me first, which is by FPL Morris. I feel this is more like the Salah plus Haaland template. So again, the keepers are 4.5 million keeper and a 4.0 million keeper. Then you have Vardiol and Trent. Standard picks there. You have a 4.5 defender in Mikalenko. On the bench, it's Barco and Harut Bellis, both 4.0 million. So in terms of the defense, I think this is a kind of template defense. In terms of the midfield, yes, you have Salah. You also have Eze at 7 million. You also have Nkunku at 6.5 million. So I think here at the 5.5 million spot for Hudson-Odoi is where I think there's a bit of a compromise here of the overall structure of the team, because a 5.5, I generally don't rate the 5.5 million midfielders. I mean, there's other players coming in now like Minte from Brighton. People are talking about him as an option. There's also Emil Smith-Rowe from Fulham coming in at 5.5 as well. There are options there. My only thought about that 5.5 million spot for midfielders, even up to 6 million as well, I don't rate all of them. I mean, I honestly think that kind of 5.5 million to 6 million spot is where I would avoid. 6.5 million onwards, I think, is where the real value comes in. So I would honestly just go for Rodgers there, as this draft has gone for on the bench. but then kind of upgrade all the other midfielders to at least a 6.5 million midfielder. That would be my ideal kind of pick that I would go for. But the thing is, with a Salah and Haaland draft, something has to give. And if you still want Trent, you still want Vardiol, then this Hudson-Odoi pick here has to be a 5.5 kind of a spot. You can't really reach to 6.5. So that is kind of the downside of this draft. I mean, obviously you can say things like Rodgers could be downgraded to a 4.5 like wings, and you could get a 6.0 million midfielder for Hudson-Odoi, someone else at a 6 million bracket, but I still don't think that bracket is good. So as I've said, there are a lot of compromises to be made here for a Haaland and Salah draft. But in general, I think going for these two premiums, you just really have to hope that both of them pop off, because that essentially is about, I mean, it's 15 million plus 12.5 million. That's 27.5 million there. More than a quarter of your budget is spent on two players. Say, for example, they really don't pop off in any given week. That is really kind of it will kind of lead to a bummer kind of a week for you, because you're not really relying on too many other players to score very well. Like, you wouldn't be banking on Hudson-Odoi to get a lot of points for you, right? So I just think that there are compromises that are having to be made with this Haaland and Salah draft. The balance is just not too great in my opinion. In terms of the other draft here towards the left-hand side of the screen, it is a slightly more different Salah and Haaland draft in terms of the fact that they haven't gone for Trent there. They have decided to downgrade Trent to someone like a Livramento 4.5 million. Now, of course, the Livramento pick here is still something that we need to keep an eye out for, because Trippier is still a Newcastle player. He has not, there are rumours, but he has not left Newcastle, so we have to keep an eye out for that. But looking at it in terms of this perspective, just a placeholder for a 4.5 million defender. There's Livramento, Vardiol, and Mykolenko. So by downgrading Trent to that 4.5, you get money to kind of upgrade elsewhere. So Chris Wood has now become Havertz. In the previous draft, it was Haaland, Isak, and Chris Wood. Now you can afford to upgrade Chris Wood to Havertz. And then the bench is pretty much similar. Two 4.0 million defenders, and then there's Rodgers there as your other bench option. And then in midfield, you have Salah, you have Nkunku. Now this draft has decided to go for Gordon there, 7.5 million. So I think another way that we could kind of tweak this draft a little bit is potentially going for Eze instead of Gordon here, because there's a triple up with Newcastle here. If I were to kind of tweak this team a little bit, I'll go from Gordon to Eze, save that 0.5, upgrade Elanga, find money elsewhere. I mean, potentially, if I'm really going with this structure, I might even downgrade Rodgers to wings and then find that total extra 1 million to upgrade Elanga to a 6.5. Could be a Morgan Gibbs-White, could be a Brennan Johnson, but the 6.5 million bracket could even be Bailey as well. I think that bracket is much better in terms of players. So I would probably do that to kind of tweak this draft a little bit. But in general, the idea is that this is likely a Salah, Haaland, Havertz draft here on the left, which I kind of do like as well. So different variations that you can go for, but again, the room to maneuver is very, very tight. I guess it is something that the Haaland and Salah drafts have to kind of deal with due to the lack of structure as well. So again, maybe rotation wise, especially for the bench options, it would just be slightly trickier. You could still get a very strong 11 out, but week in, week out with a Salah and Haaland draft, you will be in positions where you have to just start your starting 11 players against difficult teams. You just have to kind of bank that they do well instead of having that option to rotate your bench players on, because your bench would pretty much be non-existent there. So there we go with these two drafts here. These are variations of Salah and Haaland drafts. Let me know down in the comments below if you have both of them and if you're able to find a better balance than these drafts here that we've discussed. But if not, let's take a look now at the other end of the spectrum, which is no Haaland and no Salah. So finally, we have a no premium draft as the last draft that I want to discuss. So I haven't had any no premium drafts discussed on my channel so far, so this is a good time to kind of introduce this as well. Yes, I've seen a couple of these drafts on Twitter, so I've picked up the best one that I've seen that was sent to me. And I think for those of you who kind of play FPL in a different way, where you don't want to go for obvious picks, you want to go quite maverick, you want to bank on maybe the premiums not delivering. Because if we think about it, for those of the guys who are going for Haaland, let's say, and Salah. You need both of them to deliver. For those who are going, let's say, Haaland only, and you captain Haaland most likely, you really need these premiums to deliver. The thinking behind this draft is that you are backing against those premiums not delivering. May not be the best solution because there's a reason why those premiums are premiums in the first place. But then you are banking on the differential gains that you would make in situations where the premiums aren't delivering and your kind of differential players here are delivering. So there's kind of, I don't know, different ways to play this game. So let's take a look at this draft here. There is Raya in goal and then Fabianski. So Fabianski is just a 4.0 million. The Raya pick here is what I like because you get to go for the Arsenal defense, the best defense in the league so far. And there's a double up here in Raya and Saliba. Because why not? There's so much money that you have. 5.5 million for a keeper to get an entry into the Arsenal defense with a double up in Saliba. I think it's fine because you look at the first 3 game weeks, it could be really good. And obviously, when you're thinking about a Salah-less and Haaland-less draft like this one, you probably won't go with a thinking where you're going to go without these two players for a super long time. So this could be just a situation where you want to capitalize on the first maybe first 3 game weeks, for example. And that's where Arsenal do really well. So Saliba and Raya here. Then there's Vardiol and Trent. Both template picks. I think that kind of helps you to protect a little bit of your rank. And midfield is where I think this draft really explodes here because there is Bruno Fernandes, 8.5. There's Nkunku, 6.5. Son is your premium midfielder-ish, mid-premium range kind of midfielder at 10.0 million. And then there's Gordon and Gibbs-White. So all your midfield picks here are kind of, I would say, upper-tier picks because we're not even considering 5.5 million midfielders anymore. You're looking at the kind of budget options here in Nkunku, Gordon, and Gibbs-White. All very good value for what they offer. And then Bruno Fernandes at 8.5 million, a bit of a differential pick, but on penalties, 90 minutes, Manchester United's fixtures have been highly underrated to start the season. So if Bruno Fernandes somehow pops off, you are on that train already. And then there's Son there as your premium to kind of help you move around. Let's say you want to move to Saka, you have that option. Move to Palmer, you also have that option. Downgrade to Foden, also an option there. And then up front, it's Watkins and Isak. So a very, very strong kind of attacking 7. And when I look at the bench as well, you have Armstrong there, 5.5 million. Have him on the bench there because he's playing Newcastle away, but a 5.5 million forward is, again, as I've mentioned, a playable position because that's where players like Armstrong, João Pedro are all kind of decent options within that range. You also have an option for 2 very strong 4.5 million defenders there. So in weeks where, let's say, for a case where, let's say, you have a double up in Arsenal defense like this draft here with Raya and Saliba, game week 2, Arsenal will have a tougher fixture where they play Aston Villa away. That's when you can play you can bench Saliba if you don't want to have a double up on the Arsenal defense that week, and you play either one of Anderson or Konza, likely Anderson because Konza would then be playing Arsenal attack. So there we go. The Anderson pick can just come in. So your rotation is really strong, and that's kind of where the value of the no premium draft is, where you can really kind of optimize your picks every single game week. The only main concern obviously is that your captaincy really has to pay off because, say for example, someone else captain Haaland, someone else captain Salah. You need your captain, who is in this case Watkins, to kind of deliver as well. I will probably captain Isak instead of Watkins for this game week as well, if you're talking about this draft by Barca. But if not, let me know in the comments below if you are considering a no premium draft. I haven't really considered it for myself because I would likely start the season with 1 premium, so that I probably just captain that premium to go ahead with the first few game weeks of the season. But I think it's interesting. It is likely not what everyone is adopting, but I think it's fair to just have a look at the draft and what it could look like. Say you don't have either of these premiums. It does look very strong, as I've mentioned. So let me know in the comments below. But if not, the previous drafts as well, if your drafts look kind of similar or if there's changes you would like to make, let me know down in the comments below. If not, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and kind of gain a bit of insight into the structures that you would get with these different types of drafts. And I'll see you guys in more FPL Game Week 1 content coming very soon. Bye-bye.